Hello CC friends, thanks for joining for this week's Great Artist of Roy Lichtenstein. He was born in 1923 in New York City. Here is a detail of one of his most famous paintings called Wham. A detail means this is not showing its entire picture. So let's look at that and then talk a little bit more about him. You can grab these resources off of a PDF in the description of this video. So here we have his drawing for Wham. He drew this just with pencil on paper, and it was basically like 5 by 12, so not very big. But then here's the final outcome. This is probably one of his most famous paintings. He completed it in 1963, and it ended up being 68 inches by 160 inches, so quite large. I grabbed this one with a person in it to show you the proportion of how large it really is. So Mr. Lichtenstein, and when he was in high school, he really developed this lifelong interest in music and science and art, and particularly painting and drawing that we see. And during World War II, he was in the military. He actually drew maps for troop movements. And then eventually he ended up teaching at the universities in 1963 when he began painting full-time. So let's look at some more of his things. He used a lot of Ben-Day dots in his work. Now on here I have a link on the front, and you can check out more about what Ben-Day dots are, but they were named after its creator, Mr. Benjamin Day. So that's just where you have dots right beside each other, and it's not a complete color. So here we have two of his sunrise, the New Fall of America, art critic. What artist does this remind you of here that we've studied? It reminds me of Picasso. And it does even mention on the artist card that he was influenced by Picasso's Cubism, and so you can see a strong influence here. Here are some lesser known ones of his, which is Haystack Number 7 and Yellow Haystack. When I immediately saw these, I thought of Claude Monet's haystacks. Claude Monet painted this one in 1890. And then these were done in 1969 by Mr. Roy Lichtenstein. So you can see how even the great artists, they're studying other great artists and mimicking, but changing it a little bit to fit their style. Here's a sculpture that he painted. So sculpture means it's like a ceramic piece, like a 3D piece, and then he painted on top of that. And here's another famous one, Varum. This one's 56 inches by 56 inches. That's really big. I bet this is very powerful in person. So we're going to mimic this today. For the supplies, you're going to need either blue or red paints. You're going to need a piece of yellow cardstock, a piece of printer paper, a half a sheet of cardstock. We're going to be using a permanent marker, a pencil, scissors, and Q-tips. So let's get started. This is going to be our base. You're going to take this half sheet of cardstock and you're going to place it at an angle on here. Okay, so not like hanging off the side, but on your paper somehow. You could have someone hold it for you. You could have an adult trace around it. Sometimes tracing something can kind of be hard because it may bend up or something on the edge. So just take your time if you need to. But that's why I suggest cardstock and not just using like regular printer paper, because it will be a little bit more firm. You could even use like a piece of cardboard. That would be nice and firm as well. So let's trace around this. So now I have my black rectangle on here. Now if you noticed, I rotated my paper so that when I was using my marker, I was just pulling my hand down. I wasn't having to like twist around. So rotate that paper, make it easy to trace. The next thing we're going to do is take a sheet of paper. This is just printer paper, and we're going to fold it in half long ways like this. Then we're going to do a few marks on it. We're going to do, basically we're gonna make it look like a sunrise or a sun. So I'm going to do an arch, like so. So I'm leaving a little bit of edge. Okay, so about 3 fingers. And then we're going to put triangles off of this. So I'm gonna do one going straight off like this because I'm gonna cut this and then I'll have the other side to it. Okay, I'm doing this in pencil and not in marker or pen because we are going to be gluing this down and I don't want to see the marks coming through. So I ended up with a total of about 6. I did it previously and I ended up with 5, so about 5 or 6. You want to make sure that these at the ends, they go off on the edge right here. If we take it off to the side here, then it's going to make a funky shape. All right, now let's cut it. You could get an adult to do this, but the only line that we're going to cut is going to be the one on the outside. We're not going to cut this line. We're just doing whatever is on the outside. So you can see, open it up, and bam, pop, wow, bang. We've got this to lay on top. Before we glue it down, we're going to put our word on there. Oh, I forgot to mention, you're gonna need either a blue or red marker. So if I'm using a red marker, then I'm gonna use blue paint, vice versa. So if you're doing this in community, you can grab a 12-pack of all the same color online, and that makes it really easy. Okay, so let's choose a word. If you're doing this community, I would suggest listing a list of words up on the board. You could also write your name if you wanted to do that. Plan out how many spaces. So let's plan out our words. So I'm gonna do POW. I'm gonna do P-O-W and exclamation points. I'm gonna go back and make this thicker and make it really stand out. Next, I'm gonna take my black Sharpie and I'm going to outline these marks here. In a lot of Lichtenstein's work, you will see a lot of strong lines. I'm not gonna necessarily try to connect them all because then we're just gonna do up and down. If you're doing this, like level 2 could outline it. Level 1, you could just leave it white, or you could let an adult help you just to outline this. If you're doing it community for time's sake, maybe you don't outline it, or you could go back later and do it. You could even go and outline the word. If you're doing this in community day, then that could take a lot of time to outline all of that, so you can just leave it. Next, we are going to glue this down on our paper, and you can kind of tilt it depending on the shape that yours is. You want to try to get it all on there, but if you have a little bit that, if you want to angle it a certain way and some of it falls off, then that's okay, because you could just come and try to trim that off like that. So let's glue it down. For glue, use whatever you have. If you've got a glue stick or just some good old Elmer's glue. If you're doing just Elmer's glue, then like just dab it along the edge, because if you get too much, then it could start making your paper wrinkle up. This is rubber cement. I like using this because it doesn't wrinkle. But anything to hold it down. All right, now let's glue it. Hold it down in the center, press it out. All right, now it's time to add our Ben-Day dots. Because I used red, I'm going to use blue paint. He used primary colors a lot in his. So here we've got his Varun. You can see where he's got his letters and it's got a lot of energy coming out. So I would suggest using a Q-tip, and you may need to have a couple of them because they will start kind of getting a little frayed, but we're going to take a plate. So just smear it out a little bit to kind of give you a little place to dab it. And then you're going to dab it in the yellow area of these inside of our box. We're not going to overlap. The Ben-Day dots are beside each other, not overlapping. But you probably haven't done this before, so if you get some that overlap, that's okay. See, look, those are touching just a little bit. I'm gonna try to stay off of my whites, but it may be hard to do that. So like that one went on it, it's okay. And if you wanna get some of them thicker, you could do that. And then we just keep working our way around. Okay, at this point, I'm going to flip my Q-tip over, or you could get a new Q-tip. Do you see how I've kind of got starting to have a little tail there, and the circles are not getting that circly. They're getting a little organic. I'm using my black rectangle as my guide to keep it straight. I'm not going down using the arrows, so I'm trying to use that. But again, just have fun creating these Ben-Day dots on your Roy Lichtenstein artwork. And you may have several dots that aren't the best, but when you step back and look at it overall, I'm sure it will look great. Because I have some that are not perfect as well. When I put this green paint on here, I'm getting these hints of green, because when it's a really light blue, I'm getting that yellow behind it, and blue and yellow make green. So that's kind of a fun surprise. Okay, so here we have our pal. And if you do this with the opposites of the blue and the red, and that looks just as good too. I think the red paint does really well on the yellow because it's a warm color, warm and warm. These are a cool and a warm color, and you're getting a secondary color of the green back there, but I think it looks great too. Thanks for joining me for this week's lesson with Roy Lichtenstein, which is wrapping up our Great Artists for Cycle 3. Now after you get finished and it's dried and you want to go back and add some more details with a marker, you could do that. Maybe you have the student or the child write the word, and then you could come back and outline around the word just to make it pop and kind of clean it up a little bit. And you can also see some of these lines that he has coming out. So you could take that template, which is firm. This is just to add some other things onto it if you've got time at home. And you could add some more movement coming out from it. Do you see how he has some lines, like kind of blobs coming out? And they are some of them get smaller than larger. So you could kind of do that. You could which kind of draws your eye into it, like it gives it some movements. You really could start adding so many fun things to this. So if you do like those rectangles, kind of thinned them out coming out, you could put dots in between them. It's really endless. All right, here we have where I did go and outline the words, and I added a few things off to the side just to kind of create some more energy lines with the dots. This one I did descending dots on here. If you're doing this in community or even at home, you can give restrictions to the kids and just say, hey, you can do maybe like 7 things coming out of it, 5, 7, but if you don't put some kind of parameters on them, then you could have basically another little scene going on in the background, and you want to keep POW or whatever your word is kind of as the main focal point. So these are just small little accents. You can refer back to his small accents off to the side, but we have our word as the main focus.